wonderful sweet babies. It's Destin Choice, and you're listening to my podcast, Time Out with Choice. So for today's podcast, I want to get on here and drag the fuck out of disgusting Fashion Nova for over-sexualizing kids. Ugh. So I wanted to get on here and talk about the over-sexualization of kids in the media, more specifically, because Fashion Nova recently came out with their kids line, which is disgusting because you guys know Fashion Nova is known for selling thought clothes, which no shame to them, no shame in their game. Fashion Nova does what it does. Fashion Nova is what it is, and Fashion Nova is as popular as it is because people want to dress like how they want to dress like, which is respectable completely. Even though Fashion Nova is responsible for reinforcing a lot of negative stereotypes into a lot of women, considering that majority of their photo shoots are of racially ambiguous women or women who basically look like ants. Women who are built like ants, which I get. I mean, I understand that that's what's marketable. It's a hustle, it's a marketing strategy, and it's a confidence booster. So Fashion Nova wanted to step into the spaces of teeny boppers, and they wanted to come out with a line that catered to kids because they've gotten tons of requests. You know, after their men's line really succeeded, they wanted to work with kids, which I get because kids is a really big market and everybody's looking for clothes for their kids. However, Fashion Nova is known for selling thought clothes, and Fashion Nova coming out with a kids line is like Victoria's Secret's coming out with a kids line.
Stomach. Now I'm showing y'all this so y'all can know what's really going on. This is sick, bro. Now look at this. Kids, how old is this girl? Like 4 years old? 5 years old? Who dresses their kids this way, man? And now they're trying to say, oh, this is the new fashion for kids. Bro, fishnets and fucking see-through clothing, and the clothing just gets tighter and tighter. Bro, look at this shit. Come on, man. It
doesn't work. It's disgusting. It's gross, and they need to leave the kids the fuck alone. And it's unfortunate because I noticed that the media was going insane. The Shade Room, all these mainstream outlets was talking about how controversial Cuties was, which it was. You know, a lot of you guys asked me to do a review on the horribly controversial movie Cuties, where basically it was a movie about some girls who were 10, 11 years old who started a twerk team, and a lot of you asked me to do a review, but I was like, no. I rebuke this shit in the name of Jesus. I'm not reviewing that bullshit. So I noticed that people are so quick to cancel Netflix and call out Netflix for promoting grooming and over-sexualizing kids, but don't have the same energy with Fashion Nova. I mean, I get it. You know, Fashion Nova does have nice clothes, but if you're going to call out Netflix, you also have to call out Fashion Nova too. Now, we have to overall stop over-sexualizing kids because the way their photo shoots are a little bit problematic. It'd be different if the clothes were age appropriate, but majority of the clothes are not age appropriate. And it's even more deplorable because society doesn't give a fuck. Now, I want to talk about the over-sexualization of kids and how they're quickly starting to normalize pedophilia, mainly because if you guys didn't know, Sacramento, California recently passed a bill.
A new bill, SB 145. It's getting a lot of negative attention from people on both sides of the aisle. SB 145 would lower penalties for adults convicted of sex crimes with minors. And joining us to talk a little bit more about this bill is California State Senator Shannon Grove. Senator, thank you for talking to us tonight.
Oh, absolutely, Ginger. Thank you very much for the invitation to discuss this important issue.
You know, this is a framework of stories that I cover heavily, passionately here in San Diego, and I've been flooded with folks just not happy at all about this bill. This bill was created by Senator Scott Wiener in San Francisco. Can you explain to us or give us an example of how it would work?
So, I mean, we're going to have a frank conversation about this bill because this bill does affect our children. SB 145 would remove the requirement for offenders to register as sex offenders if they were committing certain sex crimes with minors and there was a 10-year age gap. So this is something that parents need to stand up everywhere. They need to call the governor and they need to say, veto this bill.
Yeah, because right there, a 14-year-old cannot give consent. They are below the age. So how can they say it's voluntary?
Under this bill, the 14-year-old will be able to give consent to those types of sex acts. And if they did, or if they were coerced into it, or they we just need to protect our children so that individuals that are 24 years old, 23 adults cannot have sex with minors.
Before SB 145, what happens in California is that obviously, like, if you have sex with minors, you have to register as a sex offender. However, if you had sex with a minor who was 14, who was between the ages of 14 and 17 years old, and you're only older than them by 10 years or less, so you're not older by 10 years from them, then the state doesn't require you to automatically register. Rather, the state allows each judge to make a case-by-case judgment. So let's say that you had sex with a 15-year-old. Please don't have sex with a 15-year-old. But let's say somebody had sex with a 15-year-old and they're older than them by 10 years or less, so they're at least under 25. Then the judge currently decides whether that person will register as a sex offender or not. That's currently, like, before 145. But the problem with that bill is that as the law currently stands, that only applies for vaginal sex. So if you were 25 or younger and you had sex with a minor, you had vaginal sex with a 15-year-old, the judge decides whether you get to register as a sex offender. But if you have oral sex or anal sex with the minor of the same age, then the judge no longer gets to decide, rather automatically you register as a sex offender. So I'm not sure if that's making sense, but basically under current law, the judge gets to give a break, a possible break, to sex offenders who have vaginal sex with minors, but the minute you have oral sex or anal sex with minors, if you're 10 years or less older than them, then you automatically register as a sex offender. It kind of improves some of the inequities that LGBT folks get, because if you only have anal sex, like if men have sex with men, then you're only having anal sex, and then that means automatically you'll register as a sex offender, which is a more harsh punishment than if you're a heterosexual man who has sex with a woman vaginally. So, but you know, other people believe, you know, neither of them should get that leeway. Like, no matter what kind of sex you have with a minor, even if you are younger than them.
Sacramento, the judge has the final say on whether or not the defendant, who was the sexual predator, has to identify as a registered sex offender. And I'm like, the fact that was even implemented or thought of already shows that this is kind of agenda-ish. I mean, I get at the end of the day that people are going to say, well, it's just kids being kids. Kids are being kids. Kids aren't even thinking about that. No, it's gross. It's disgusting. You shouldn't put your kids in bullshit like that, because you know what happens? You get that kind of wrong attention. And when you get that wrong kind of attention, you have to deal with what? Teen pregnancies. Now, at the end of the day, every woman has a horror story of some grown-ass man grooming them. Regardless, every woman who's at least 25 years old has a horror story of them being groomed by a way fucking older gentleman or way older guy. And it's horribly disgusting that Fashion Nova is adding and fueling to this kind of agenda shit where they're trying to over-sexualize kids. And just like how I hold Fashion Nova accountable, and just like how I hold the movie Cuties accountable, I also have to hold accountable all these other platforms that over-sexualize kids, like TLC. That bullshit show, Toddlers and Tiaras. Yeah, y'all can't tell me Toddlers and Tiaras isn't creepy. It's creepy as fuck. Same thing with the show Bring It. SpongeBob is a good example. A lot of us didn't even realize how disgustingly inappropriate SpongeBob was until we got older. And SpongeBob is disgusting. Same thing with all these other Disney shows and these cartoons and all these other Disney princesses that are endowed, and Snow White, for example. Snow White and Sleeping Beauty. If y'all didn't know, Sleeping Beauty was actually raped in the real story of Sleeping Beauty. Same thing with Pocahontas. Pocahontas was literally a 12-year-old girl fucking with a 40-year-old man. And I know people are going to say kids don't think about stuff like that, so it doesn't matter since they're not thinking about it. It's whatever. No, you're teaching kids at a very early age to grow up too fast. Kids should not be growing up too fast. They shouldn't be thinking about all these things that they want to wear at such a young age, because there's a lot of creepy old men who are actually going to be preying on them, and creepy old women too who are going to be preying on these little girls and boys. And if y'all don't believe me when I say that this is a whole agenda, I have some more proof for you. So recently, a woman actually went viral for straight up saying that pedophilia is a whole sexual preference and a sexuality.
Is that pedophilia is only the sexual preference for pre-adolescent children. Pedophilia is an unchangeable sexual orientation, just like, for example, heterosexuality. So let's think about Jonas again. How can we help him to live out his sexual urges? We can make a difference for Jonas. We, as a society, can be there for him. At the moment, we live in a world that already excludes pedophiles because of their preference alone. We can make Jonas feel that he stays a valuable member of our society, although he's a pedophile. Right now, most of us feel discomfort when we think about this scenario. And most of us feel discomfort when we think about pedophiles. But just like pedophiles, we are not responsible for our feelings. We do not choose them. But we are responsible for our actions. And we must make a decision. It is in our responsibility to reflect and to overcome our negative feelings about pedophiles and to treat them with the same respect we treat other people with. We should accept that pedophiles are people who have not chosen their sexuality. We should accept that pedophilia is a sexual preference. We shouldn't increase the suffering of pedophiles by excluding them, by blaming and mocking them.
And guess what? Many politicians have followed and said the same thing.
This is the handout in question, titled, "What is a Sexual Orientation?" It lists things such as pedophilia, bestiality, and incest. It was distributed to lawmakers yesterday by Representative and Speaker Pro Tem Paul Stam.
Well, it was fairly disturbing, and he stood up on the floor and he began his remarks while the sergeant at arms were passing out these sheets on each of the members' desks. So it was evidently a very quickly put together effort to stop the amendment.
Stam was debating an amendment to Senate Bill 793 that would prohibit discrimination in hiring and admissions at charter schools on the grounds of sexual orientation and gender identity. Mountain Representative Susan Fisher brought the amendment to the table.
After he made his opening remarks, he asked if I would stand for a question, and I decided not to, because after I saw this sheet, I really did not want to go into that with him.
She says she and several other lawmakers, including Representative Tricia Cotham, were very disappointed with his actions.
To use really severe issues to say that that's how sexual orientation is defined is really offensive.
The handout was published more than a decade ago by the American Psychiatric Association. But at the time, the APA didn't list them as sexual orientations, but instead classified them as disorders.
Topic of pedophilia. Can a person be born a pedophile? Do you agree with her?
I do not. I believe that there are actions, and I believe that there are things that entice and enhance a person to make them feel or want or to do something so hideous. So it's not something that you're born with. I do not believe that.
Okay, what about you, Jada?
It can be something that you're exposed to, something that you're around, but to be born like that, I don't agree with.
And what about you, Jermaine? Do you think that it's possible to be born a pedophile?
Yes, it could be genetics. Maybe the father was, a freak is what they call it, and maybe expose his son to it, and it can turn out to be, you can be born with it, but I don't really think born with it.
Exposed.
Exposed. I don't think born.
Not born, so you don't agree.
Hold on. Really, I really don't agree. No, I don't agree.
In conclusion, Fashion Nova is fucking disgusting. They're horribly disgusting. And to even see that on their site, they have top sellers, best sellers, sold out, just already shows that I don't know who the fuck in their right mind is buying this bullshit for their kids, but it's definitely human traffickers buying their shit for their victims. Because Fashion Nova is not being held accountable for this, and no one really gives a fuck because they see it as it's not that serious. No, it is that serious. Now, I want everyone listening to this to do me a huge favor and look up your local registered sex offenders. A lot of y'all listening to this probably didn't know this, but you can actually Google sex offenders who live near you. So if you live in Chicago, Illinois, type in the city you live in the state you live in, and type in sex offenders. If you live in Miami, Florida, type in Miami, Florida, sex offenders. If you live in Mobile, Alabama, type in Mobile, Alabama, sex offenders. And just overall look up your city and state sex offenders, and you will see a horribly long list of sex offenders who live near you. Sex offenders literally live near schools, behind schools, near parks. Some of them live near dance academies. They live near art academies. They live near kids. They live everywhere. Literally, if you look it up, you'll see like a huge map and dots everywhere. Dot, 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 dot. Like a whole bunch of dots everywhere that lead and pinpoint exactly to where sex offenders live, what their addresses are, what their cars look like, and what their crimes were. There's literally someone who lives like right around the corner from me who was charged for forcibly penetrating a 12-year-old or under. And it's disgusting that a lot of us never talk about this. A lot of us never are taught this in school. We're not taught to talk about the registered sex offenders who live near us. And it's crazy how there's people in jail right now doing 12, 13, 14, 15 years to life for damn near smuggling drugs, selling drugs, doing drugs. But sex offenders could live in our neighborhood. They could live in our cities. They could live in our district. They could live near parks. They could live near schools, and no one ever talks about it. Grown-ass men and grown-ass women who are grooming little boys and girls are living in our areas, and no one talks about this. Literally no one. And it shows you that this is an agenda to where they want us to be okay with pedophiles. Like, oh, it's okay. They can live near you. Yes, they might have groomed and sexually assaulted kids, but if they live near you, it's fine. It's fine. Disgusting. Please watch out. Please be careful what your kids watch, because one minute your kid could be watching a damn tutorial on how to make slime and how to juju on that beat or whatever the fuck kids like. And the next minute, they're watching a twerk tutorial by Elsa, or they're watching a twerk tutorial by Spider-Man, or how to touch yourself inappropriately. It's terrible, the kind of shit the kids are exposed to. So please be careful what your kids see on television, and please be careful what your kids watch on their phones. And I understand that sometimes it's going to be hard, but with Fashion Nova doing stuff like this, it should be a broad, wide awakening. There's no reason why 13, 14, 15-year-olds should be dancing and acting inappropriately. A good example was that Savage Dance Challenge with Megan Thee Stallion and Beyonce. One thing that I did notice is when I was on TikTok and when I was on Instagram, I was seeing a lot of these little girls get reposted and going viral for doing the "I'm a savage, classy, bougie, ratchet," and you're fucking 14. Like, what the fuck do you mean classy, bougie, ratchet? Like, sit your ass down somewhere and go stick your nose in the fucking books. Like, what the fuck is going on? So kids are being groomed and kids are being taught and programmed to be sexual deviants so that way they could fall into the hands of human traffickers, and that way they could fall into the hands of grown-ass pedophiles. And the reason why they're so lenient on pedophiles is because a lot of these politicians are legit pedophiles. A good example was fucking Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton is known for grooming little girls. I mean, if y'all didn't know, there was a photo that resurfaced of Bill Clinton being hugged up and kicking it with one of Jeffrey Epstein's victims. And y'all know Jeffrey Epstein was a huge child predator and a huge human trafficker who was damn near a billionaire. And people like Jeffrey Epstein had people like Bill Clinton all up in his damn apartment, all up in his damn home, taking pictures with little girls. And of course, the mainstream media don't talk about this. Shame on the mainstream media for not talking about Fashion Nova doing this kind of bullshit, but it's quick to condemn Netflix. Quick to condemn Netflix, but won't condemn one of the biggest fashion brands in the world. Fashion Nova is what it is. They make thought clothes. They enhance insecurities. They make girls feel insecure about themselves. And they make girls as young as 12, 13, 14, 15 years old want to dress like that. Unfortunately, it's the parents' fault for not reinforcing self-love and self-respect and all that other things and self-appreciation. So if little girls feel like they want to look like their favorite Instagram models, then it is what it is. That's the parents' problem for not reinforcing self-confidence. But Fashion Nova tapping into these little spheres of kids, like, it's weird. It's creepy. It's grooming. And it's teaching kids, like, oh my God, if kids are wearing this and if kids are dressing like this, maybe it's okay. Maybe it's okay if I want to show my sexuality a little bit and promote my... No. And I also want to bring up how YouTube, if y'all didn't know, has a documentary coming out very soon called Drag Kids. If y'all didn't hear, YouTube has a documentary called Drag Kids, where kids as young as 9, 10, 11, and 12 are dressing up in drag. But your kids should not have a fucking Instagram account or a social media account if they're under the age of at least 15. They should not have a social media account if they're under the age of 15, 16 years old. And that's why I know why social media is really knuckling down on, like, you know, age restriction, all these other things, because it's too many kids on here. That's why whenever y'all comment on my YouTube videos, whenever y'all comment on Instagram or comment on anything, they say, oh, sorry, that's too inappropriate, or that looks like it's been reported before. There's a reason why y'all comments on Instagram and YouTube is being censored, because there's too many freaking kids on here. There's not enough parents watching their fucking kids, because there's so many fucking sexual predators out there, because parents are not doing their job. So that's all I'm gonna say. Fashion Nova, fuck y'all. Y'all disgusting as shit, and y'all should stay the fuck away from kids. They're disgusting. Please be sure to tune in my podcast if you guys are listening. Please be sure to stream it on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many, many more. Please be sure to support my Patreon. My Patreon is TROYCETV. I really appreciate all the love and support. Thank you guys for listening. And yeah, that's that. Timeout is over.